If there is any magic in the wand of youth, it touched the Montlhery circuit in the late autumn of 1962. A group of young men with oil in their veins rolled south of Paris to this steep, banked bowl of a circuit and set to work on their Ford Anglia. Their object? To smash 6 world time and distance records in International Class G. Brainchild of 24-year-old twins, Mike and Tony Brooks, the plan developed with the help of 4 other drivers, a strong technical team, and some well-wishing sponsors. The car was a normal production Anglia, with the Ford Performance Kit added and some on-the-spot modifications, mainly in the interests of streamlining. An atmosphere of entente cordiale was there from the start, with the scrutineers and officials from the FIA keeping a paternal eye on everything. For the drivers, there was a distinct feeling of tension as they came up to the grid to face 7 days and nights of hard, foot-down driving. Now the clock became the master, and only the ticking seconds were the enemy. An entirely private venture, everybody used their annual holiday to make the attempt, the whole affair was marked by tremendous teamwork from friends who pitched in to do timekeeping, pit work, and administrative duties. The circuit used is essentially a high-speed test track, producing a lap in little over a minute. Timekeepers were therefore at concert pitch throughout and maintained a regular information board to drivers as they flashed past the control tower. Two of the drivers, Arthur Taylor and Jerry Boxall, had taken part in previous attempts of this nature when the Cambridge University Automobile Club set the world records for a car with an under 1100cc engine. This experience was useful and was allied to the technical know-how of the engineers Don Moore and Jack Welch. The team commissioned tuning specialist Don Moore to apply his vast knowledge and experience to the preparation of the car for a grueling test of this kind. Throughout the long days and nights, he kept a watchful eye on the young enthusiasts. Jack Welch, well known for his experience with Anglias in the competition field, also came to Montlhery and was another reassuring factor behind the scenes. Autumn sunset and the marker lamps were placed around the circuit. Nightfall and only the steady note of an engine and the passing flash of headlights recorded the progress of the car. A system of night signaling was used to keep drivers informed of lap speeds to the nearest tenth of a second. Some drivers confessed this helped to keep them alert and dispel the feeling that they were driving alone in space. Pit stops were truly professional and occurred every 3 hours. A rhythm soon developed which gave the maximum use of every second the car was stationary. The stops averaged 58 seconds and the record was clocked at 51. Churns and a large funnel meant a rapid fill-up of a standard tank which was linked to a 10-gallon auxiliary and enabled 12 gallons to be taken on every 3 hours. Like a handicapped racehorse, the Anglia was carrying a good deal more weight than just its driver. A vast array of spares had been bought, which the FIA insisted should be carried in the car. So round she went, loaded with tools and spares, including half shafts, springs, and even a complete radiator. Happily, yet ironically, the only spare used was a single spotlight bulb. In addition to the 13-pound performance kit, there had been fitted a rev counter, oil pressure gauge, seat belt, and spotlights. It was obvious for these speeds, 90 down the straights, to fit racing tires. As the nervous tension eased, the drivers were able to get a reasonable amount of sleep, but the pit staff were on their feet every 3 hours, both day and night. Their enthusiasm never flagged, although their off-duty periods of rest were mostly spent like soldiers in battle, odd snatches of sleep in their clothes. A computer would not have been out of place to handle the endless calculations that were made. Apart from the signals from timekeepers to track, the off-duty drivers and backroom boys were always posing the question, how are we doing? Impromptu discussions took place in the control tower, and on the track, a determined cameraman took pictures in anticipation of a good press story. As drivers, engineers, and pit staff awoke from their snatched sleep, there was always that reassuring sound of the Anglia steaming round the track and piling up the miles. Shortly after the halfway stage, 3 records were in the bag and the car still going like a bomb. At 15 and 20,000 kilometers, the old average speed records of 74 plus miles per hour had been broken to over 83 miles an hour. Each driver completed 156 laps to a 3-hour stint at the wheel and covered approximately 250 miles in that time. It was at this point that the spotlight bulb was replaced. We'd been overcautious in bringing such a load of spares, said Mike Brooks, but we never dreamed we would only use this one small bulb. The weather was, as usual, unpredictable. Some mornings were quite warm for the time of year, but most were cold and bleak, with high winds blowing. The rains came with a vengeance on some days, and several of the nights brought sharp and violent showers. One night there was a frost warning, but the drivers ignored it, although one of them could not ignore a sudden descent of fog for 12 dicey laps. High winds meant delicate steering correction, and heavy rain produced the inevitable drag on the car. Excitement mounted when the 5-day record was in sight, and Jack Welch brought the off-duty drivers and pit staff out to make their salams as the Anglia flashed by. Some people just couldn't wait to get back behind that wheel. Later, on the 5th day, there was a longer pit stop when all 4 wheels were changed. During the entire run, only 6 tires were changed, and most of the wear was attributed to pounding on uneven parts of the track's surface. Radiator water was not checked until the 5th day, and only a pint was required to top up. Spark plugs were removed, checked, found okay, and there was never any trouble from that quarter. Excitement mounted again as the end of the attempt came into sight. Press and sponsors, teammates and friends began to assemble. The checkered flag came down as the car had completed 14,010.59 miles in exactly 7 days. The average speed had been a fantastic 83.4 miles an hour, nearly 9 miles an hour over the previous record. Congratulations flowed with the champagne as the drivers thanked the tired but victorious pit staff and timekeepers. Don Moore and Jack Welch had reason to be satisfied with their contribution and their faith in the young men who dreamed up the idea and had the courage to go ahead with it. The scrutineers had carried out an exacting task and deserved to share the general congratulations. And the true winner was not forgotten, the triumphant Anglia that had achieved all that was asked of it and more as it covered those grueling milestones at Montlhery.